Now we move on to another Lustig project, Maniac Cop. I swear to Christ I didn't plan that. Just kind of happened. After the original Maniac was released, famed 80s cult writer-director Larry Cohen was interested in the concept of a Maniac Cop. He discussed the project with Lustig over lunch, and he was interested in the project. Cohen wrote a script, and Lustig tried to get the movie off the ground. Eventually, Lustig and Cohen released the low-budget exploitation film Maniac Cop, with Robert Zadar as the Maniac Cop, with Bruce Campbell and Lauren Landon as the heroes. It was a big hit, and a sequel was fast-tracked as both Lustig and Cohen were both interested in making a sequel, despite Lustig never doing one before. Everyone from the previous film returned, as well as some new actors like Robert Davi and Claudia Christian. There was more of an emphasis on film noir and action rather than horror and grindhouse entertainment of the previous film. Despite the film being released to video in the US, it was released overseas in theaters and got an even more positive reaction than the first. I'm definitely one of those people that prefers this film over the first one. The first film is pretty good, but it does feel kinda messy in certain areas. I know Lustig couldn't help the very low budget, but it feels distracting in many areas. Plus, I watched the extended cut, which was made for Japanese television, and despite adding a subplot regarding the mayor, it didn't add much in terms of the story, and just ended up being very confusing to me. Especially the ending, since this movie takes place many months later, yet in the alternate ending of the first film, Cordell kills the mayor with ease pretty much immediately after the real ending. That's no fault on the film, but it was still kinda jarring. Anyway, moving on to the actual second film, I thought it was much better and much more interesting, despite the first act being a bit rushed. Robert Davi is awesome in the lead role. He was the quintessential film noir detective, and he absolutely nails it. I actually found him to be a much more interesting protagonist than Bruce Campbell, despite Campbell doing a pretty damn good job in the original film. He's badass and doesn't care who knows it, and it's fucking great. Claudia Christian was notorious for being a complete and total bitch on the set of this film, but she still did a very good job. I liked her character, and she had a good back and forth with Davi. The makeup and effects are superb, especially during the climax, which, in and of itself, is great. Leo Rossi also does a good job as the weird, insane fan of Cordell. He was a bit annoying at times, but that was the point, so I say it's forgivable. As I stated, it goes for a more film noir tone that there was only hints of in the original, as well as more action and less horror elements. There were still some creepy moments, but it was very clear that it was more focused on a gruff detective story than an exploitation horror movie, which I actually did appreciate. It just made for a more interesting film. There actually isn't a ton to say about this film. Plus, there are plenty of spoilerific moments that I don't want to ruin for you if you haven't seen these movies. They're nothing amazing, but they're quite a fun time and I highly recommend them. Although I have heard the third is not very good, so don't watch that one and stick with these two.